Hey guys, and we're continuing on from Beastiary, Witcher 3 Beastiary reading, and I hope you guys enjoy that. Here we go. Godlings. Not too long ago, the areas around peasant hamlets were chock full of guardian spirits. Today it's nigh onto impossible to spot a brownie, buka, or luton. In Godlings, they are always the first to go. Such is the price we pay for civilization's onward march. Godlings, sometimes mistaken for luton, are woodland creatures dwelling in burrows and moss-covered hollow stumps on the outskirts of human settlements. They are similar to children in behavior and appearances, and like children, delight in mischief. Godlings are deeply rooted in their home territory and perform acts of care and guardianship to those dwelling near their burrows. They watch over people as well as animals, but shy creatures by nature, they try to do so while remaining unseen. Godlings are drawn to joy and innocence and so delight in the company of children and usually only show themselves to the young. These hard-working and clever creatures gladly perform small services for those in their care, asking only for respect and payment in form of food or cast-off tools in return. They are easily offended by churlish or ungrateful or simply rude behavior. Godlings also treasure their place in peace and quiet. When in the village a godling watches over becomes too populous or its inhabitants forget the old ways, it will abandon its burrow for good and walk off to destinations unknown. Howler. Hear about the contact. I'm here about the contract. Any idea what this monster is? Nay, but proper huge it must be. Slaughtered no less than a dozen wolves. Conversation overheard in Lindenvale. One is hard pressed to name another area of our world more thoroughly riddled with monsters than Valen. There is one silver lining in this sad fact. However, the beasts living there must compete fiercely for hunting territory, meaning monsters often end up killing each other. An aggressive chort known as Howler went on just such an fratricide rampage, tearing a pack of wolves to shreds before attacking and killing a fiend significantly larger than itself. Howler was a truly fearsome foe. Each one of its blows was enough to kill. Only heavy armor or Quinn sign could protect one from mortal damage. Particularly, to be avoided was its charge, and whenever possible, the monster was best attacked when from the side. Geralt slayed the Howler without much trouble, yet killing such a fierce fighter might very well have proved impossible, and not its previous conflicts with its monstrous kin weakened it considerably. The lesson, I suppose, it is that when two monsters fight, a witcher wins. Imp. Really want to see an angry witcher, do you? The imp pestering the merchants of Novigrad turned out to be a Doppler. These monsters usually avoid confrontation to everyone's great relief. For when pinned, they become extremely dangerous. Fighting them quickly turns into a fight against oneself, or to be precise, against a mirror image gifted with one's own strength and abilities. In a conflict with such even odds, only luck or destiny decides the victor. Geralt has an extra helping or of both, and so won his fight against the doppelganger. then decided to let him go free, for unlike other monsters, this creature's motives for harming humans was noble. Karnan. We told the prick something lurked in them woods, but he refused to believe it. Novigrad, the greatest metropolis in the world, the acme of civilization, material proof, or so one is tempted to think of mankind's ability to tame and control nature. Yet right outside the city walls lies a Novigrad wilderness, and whoever sets foot in it soon finds out that man's primary primacy does not extend past the walls. One of the monsters who made its lair in the thick tangled was an old, powerful Leshen. It killed any who strayed into its territory with its species' characteristic cruelty, lacerating them with razor-sharp claws, sending strangling plants shooting out of the ground, or feeding them to the pack of hungry wolves. If not for its vulnerability to fire, the Igni sign included, and the protection of Quinn sign, one could wager not even the toughest witcher would be able to slay the beast. Geralt of Rivia was only able to finally put an end to the Leshen after a long and exhausting battle. Once the beast died, the way was clear for loggers to move into its former domain. The woods will now gradually fall to the axe. Perhaps one day they'll disappear altogether, and their monstrous denizens along with it. Lessons. We never hunt in the woods, never. Even if it means the whole village starves. Lessons dwell in dense, primeval woods, fiercely territorial creatures. They hunt with stealth and cunning as their only companions. They use their inborn magic to control the plants and animals within the territory, and so when stalking them, half the battle is merely getting near enough to strike. Lessons old enough to earn the appellation, ancient, wield advanced skills in tactics and make them particularly dangerous. Morvad ate only the entrails fussy. Geralt of Rivia. Though Morvad killed the Skellige warriors without much trouble, it proved no match for the Witcher, and even tried to save its life by fleeing at one point, but that only delayed its inevitable death by the Witcher's silver blade. Sealivans. Sealivans are cruel, greedy, and treacherous. Still, I prefer them to Doin. Commander. Sylvans and Yakshars, a kindred species, are extremely rare woodland creatures whose appearance combines traits of goat and rotund men. These beings usually pose little dangers, for they limit their contact with humans to playing harmless, though often bothersome tricks in eating crops from their fields. Woodland spirit. Oh, this is the one from Skellige. We've offended him, Sven. The woodland spirit speaks revenge. This here is him saying we've strayed from the old paths. Some monsters are so powerful, local populace begin worshipping them as gods. Such was the case with the Leshen dwelling in the woods near Skellige village of Freyland. The elders were absolutely convinced that the monster watched over them by defending them from the enemies and training their hunters. The Witcher had his doubts. However, Leshens are mean, self-serving creatures, and the ancient one living in the woods near Felland was surely no exception. Geralt knew freeing the villagers from their supposed protectors' grabs would be no easy task. If he decided to even try, the Leshen known as the Woodland Spirit was so powerful as to have mastered the art of marking. This would meant the monster had inserted his essence into one of the residents of Freyland. As long as this unfortunate soul remained alive and near the settlement, the Leshen would always be reborn near its lair. Yet, even with the marked one eliminated, killing the Leshen would be no easy task. The monster commanded obedience of the denizens of the woods. It could thus call on wolves, ravens, or even the trees themselves for help. Luckily, it had a weakness as well. It was vulnerable to fire, that born of the Igni sign in particular. The Witcher managed to kill the Leshen, ending the murders terrorizing the woods around Furland. Yet this did not mean the villagers' troubles were over. Spectres. Devils by the well. Wears a dirty dress, all rags, skin flaking off in its bones, and it howls like it's suffering. The residents of White Orchard had suffered more than their fair share of misfortune. Passing armies had trampled their spring planting. A griffin had begun abducting the livestock, and the rotting icing on this painful cake on a non-wraith haunted a nearby well. No wonder the locals called this final evil a devil. The Witcher could sense something bound her to this place, and that in order to send her off into the ethereal realms, he would first need to learn her secret. Once that was done, he would have to prepare for battle, and the Noonwraith is a demanding opponent. She can disorient her victims by blinding him or creating mirror images of herself. These copies slowly soak their victims' life energy, while their mistress remains untouched. In order to defeat her, the Witcher could not rely on his silver sword alone. The Judenstein would also be needed to trap her and force her to take on material form. Witches don't normally feel a limited range of emotions regarding the monsters they slay. They despise the particularly cruel ones and are repulsed by the disgusting ones, but rare indeed is the monster for which they feel sympathy. Yet that is exactly what Geralt felt for the Noonwraith of White Orchard. For a long time, he was haunted by the thoughts of young women whose terrible deaths and powerful emotions had transformed her into a terrible monster. Heim. Some men have got good reasons to fear their own shadows. Monsters most commonly claim innocents as their victims. Tardy merchants, reckless children, and travelers who wander into the dark woodlands out of misplaced curiosity. None of the above need fear harm. However, these wraiths only latch onto particularly despicable individuals who have committed some unspeakable crime. To all others, they remain completely invisible when they do show themselves to the one they torment. They appear as a tall, shadow-clad humanoid silhouette with long, sharp claws. Jenny of the Woods. Excuse me, I'm gonna get this down. Jenny of the Woods. So that's to mean our Zukla, the Wraith. It is said true love's a flame is never extinguished. This sad truth is the reason why Zula of Midcops, whom an early death had separated from her beloved, was unable to find peace in the next life, and instead returned to haunt her former environs as a night wraith. Fighting such an apparition is extremely difficult. A night wraith will form a mirror images of herself to confuse her opponent and aid her in battle. She herself can take an immortal form, rendering her invulnerable to blows. The best way to force her out of this state is to set a trap with Yiden sign, then quickly follow up with the Igni while she is caught. Most important of all, however, is this: never attempt to fight one in the middle of the night, with the moon hangs high over the sky. This vengeful wraith might very well have killed every last inhabitant of the village, had not a famous witcher guard at Rivia appeared in Valen and been in need of a bit of corn. Night wraiths. Night wraiths exude this immense sadness, this helpless wraith. I fear them, same as anyone, but most of all I feel sorry for them. Compared to other creatures of night, catechins, necrorats, and werewolves, for example, night wraiths and their rarer cousins, dusk wraiths, might not seem at all that dangerous after all. One might ask, how much harm could a pale, withered woman in a tattered dress do? The answer is quite a bit. Instead, finding this out the hard way, avoid crossing fields and meadows at night at all costs. Like noon wraiths, night wraiths are only found in rural areas. Travelers fall victim to them most often, but if legends are to be believed, they also sneak into huts at times and murder peasants in their sleep. When they attack, night wraiths remain immaterial for most of the time, meaning physical blows pass right through them. They only take on more tangible form for the brief moments in which they strike, which, when weakened, they will create several projections of themselves which cannot attack directly but act as transmitters of sorts, though which the night wraith can sap her victim's vital energy. Excuse me. Night wraiths can turn immaterial and are at such times very difficult to wound. In order to force the one to take an corporeal form, trap it with a Yiden sign, or hit it with a blast of a moon dust bomb. Do not believe the old wife tails and think yourself completely safe from light waves during the day. They appear under the light of the sun as well, but are much weaker than after dusk. Noon raves. Noon raves. Despite what is commonly thought, peasants do not interrupt their labors at midday to get out of the sun. They do so to avoid noon raves. In particular, searing summer days, when the sun reaches its zenith, raves will at all times appear resembling sun-scorched women dressed in long white robes. These are noon raves. The spirits of young women and girls who died violent deaths right before their weddings. Driven mad with pain or anger, they wander the fields searching for their unfaithful lovers or backstabbing rivals, though they will kill anyone who does not get out of their way in time. They are often held in this world by some object or intense emotional significance. That is why if one ever finds a wedding ring or torn belt in the middle of a field, one should not pick it up, but instead back away as quickly as possible. Finds a ring or a torn veil. Okay. Noon raves are only known to haunt rural areas and usually stay near the place of their deaths. They prey on peasants working in the fields or children playing nearby. Noon raves do not bleed and are for the most part immune to the effects of witcher signs. They can create mirror images of themselves which circle their victims in a kind of morbid parody of a dance. This ghastly ritual drains their victims' life energy while adding to their own strength. Noon raves are also able to manipulate the physical world to a limited degree, kicking up clouds of dust which temporarily blind and disorient their opponents. Noon raves can turn immaterial and are at such times very difficult to wound. In order to force a noon rave to take corporeal form, one must first trap it with a Yiden sign or strike it with a moon dust bomb. Once the monster has regained physical presence, one can mount a fast attack with a silver blade, preferably one created in spectral oil. Coated in spectral oil. Contrary to popular belief, noon raves can also be encountered at night, but are much weaker than that during the day. God, these guys got a lot of bios. Golly. Petulant. I run back inside, past the doors, and then I hear someone whispering my name, Mijal. It turned out the monster haunting the Isles of Edinburgh and its lighthouse was a rare type of spectra known as the Penitent. Wherever the rave's taunts immediately becomes enveloped in thick fog and darkness, and those that wander into it usually never return. In order to defeat a penitent, one must remain in constant motion in order to avoid being struck by this agile creature, which can disappear and reappear in a blink of an eye to attack from behind. Most importantly of all, however, one must discover what keeps the monster bound to its haunting grounds, and break that bound as soon as possible. With the lighthouse keeper's help, Geralt drove the mist from the isle, then dispatched the penitent from our world for good. Now ships once again able to sail to Jarn port, and the Witcher corn pouch grew a little fuller. Excuse me, 1 second. Turn this air on, it's hot in here. Plague Maidens. Patton seemed to have hallucinations of women. Patients seem to have hallucination of women covered in scabs and boils, with rats skirling about all around her. These ravings subside after an administration of henbane and poppy extract. When plague ravages a region, a spirit will sometimes walk its great lands, a ghost resembling an ill woman whose flesh rots off her bones, and in whose wake crawls a cavalcade of rats. No one knows whether this spirit brings the pox with her, or it is merely drawn to it like a moth to a light. Yet it is certain that she delights in the dealing pain and suffering, and hearing the howling of moaning of men. Many have called into question the very existence of plague maidens, or peste, as they are sometimes called. Only 2 sightings of such a creature have ever been recorded, both during times of raging epidemic, as the name Plague Maiden suggests. These wraiths take the appearance of females, though exactly why that is remain a mystery. Some speculate they, like other such specters, arise from the powerful emotion charge associated with certain circumstances of death, such as death preceded by a long and particularly painful illness. Not much as known about how to fight a plague maiden, though one can assume they possess many traits in common with other phantoms and wraiths. They undoubtedly pose a great danger, though the Witcher immunity should at least prevent him from catching a contagious illness they carry on. The White Lady. Michael and his band. Who are they? 4 lads, drunkards and good-for-nothings. All they drained a few pints and decided they all plow the White Lady, and maybe then she'd bugger off. They fuck her, yeah. The apparition haunting the fields outside Novigrad turned out to be a noon wraith. Some powerful emotion must have bound it to that place. Love, hate, anger, or perhaps all 3 at once. Like every wraith of the type, she was surely capable of forming mirror images of herself which served to mislead opponents and restore her vitality. Luckily, these mirages could be dispelled with a quick slash from a silver blade. Like any noon wraith, she would undoubtedly seek to assume a material form while fighting, making her almost impossible to injure, unless she is first caught in a trap laid by the Yiden sign, or blasted with a special bomb. Once thus forced into materiality, she should be attacked with strong blows or ignition. Finally, One must always keep in mind two Witcher sayings. The longer you fight a Noonwraith, the lower your chances of surviving. And fight a Noonwraith at midday, and you'll be dead before dusk. The vengeful wraith, known as the White Lady, had roamed the fields for a long time, murdering anyone she came across. Though the grain hung heavy from the stalks, Though the grain hung heavy from the stalks, the frightened peasants were kept from harvesting it and thus faced famine. They gathered their last bits of savings and went in together on a bounty of the Witcher. That was a coin well spent. Raves. I'm gonna stop after this, guys. Take a quick break. Starting to slow down and get dumbed. Like read like a third grader. 1 second. Raves. Finish all your business before you die. Bid your loved ones farewell. Write your will. Apologize to those you've wronged. Otherwise, you'll never truly leave this world. Clerics and scholars are forever debated whether spirits do in fact journey in another world after death, one where eternal joy or suffering awaits. Both groups agree, however, on what happens to spirits who, for one reason and another, remain in our world after their bodies breathe its last. They transform into raves to hear their mournful howls. One can summarize this: not a fate to be envied. Alright guys, 1 second, I'll be back.